Do you want to move on?
Sure. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
This is Libby Road and the Sound Epistemology Podcast. On this episode of the podcast, Rupert and I are presented with number 5 on the Street Epistemology survey, which isn't a typical SE conversation, but an invitation to explore one's relationship with reality and truth. Let's see what's standing by for number 5.
Question 5. A statement is true if everyone agrees.
Yeah, I say strongly disagree.
Now, talk to me about where you would be at on the 0 to 100 scale with a statement is true if everyone agrees.
That's another one that's way up there in confidence for me.
Mm-hmm.
Again, based on fallacious reasoning. If everyone agrees that something is true, that has no effect on whether that thing is true or not. I can't change something just... The amount of people that believe something has no effect on whether the belief is true.
Mm-hmm.
It would take a lot to convince me that that's not, that is true.
So I wonder if you would indulge me in giving me 2 examples.
Mm-hmm.
One example of something that, if everyone agrees, this is not the case, but it is the case.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely no gray area. Clearly these people are mistaken and there's no influence over it.
Yeah, that would be like everybody agrees that the sun goes around the earth.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Because we can measure that, because we know that...
The evidence points towards that belief being incorrect.
Can you now also give me an example where that might be the case, but there's huge room for interpretation that just because everyone agrees the statement's true and we see it's false, but there may be some room for interpretation.
You're asking for an example of a claim in which everybody agrees that is also true?
Mm-hmm. No, not where they're right, where reality seems to be showing us they're wrong, but it could be that they are right. Am I making sense?
Well, I leave a little bit of room to be mistaken about the Earth going around the sun.
Okay.
It's a tiny little bit of room
Mm-hmm.
because of the mountains of evidence that shows otherwise.
So do you have another example where there's not the mounds of evidence, but there's substantial evidence that's convinced you?
In which everybody agrees?
Or if they agreed and were incorrect?
Oh, okay. You're asking for an example of a claim in which everybody agrees that doesn't have as much evidence as the Earth going around the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where even though we're seeing evidence of one thing, everyone's agreeing another, it could be that there's some influence happening by the fact that they have that. Can you think of an example of that?
I can't think, like right now, I can't think of an example of something that everybody agrees upon.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have to think about that, because I would need to, that would be the first step, is coming up with a claim that everybody agrees on.
Right.
Like, I don't know how I would be able to find out that everybody agrees about something.
So I guess this question pivots on everyone that exists, not necessarily everyone in a given large group. Because everyone that goes to an evangelical church agrees that this person up there who's getting paid handsomely and speaking loudly is influencing the lives of the people that he's touching and healing or whatever he's doing. They all agree it, but reality would seem to show that this is just a performance.
Oh, okay, so everyone could just be everyone in a group, not everyone on the planet.
That's my question.
Oh.
Which are we defining by?
Well, a statement is true if everyone agrees. I think even if we could find out everyone agrees or not, like, it doesn't. I don't think it matters that we can know if everyone agrees, because this is kind of a hypothetical. If everyone agrees, that seems like a hypothetical for me, because how could we tell in reality that everyone agrees? I don't know if we can accomplish that. So if we take the hypothetical as we have some sort of absolute knowledge that everyone agrees on something, I would still strongly disagree with that, no matter if it's a small group that we're talking about or if it's everyone on the planet. If everyone in a certain group agrees on something, that does not necessarily make it true. I don't know if that.
Yeah. That's where I was
Okay.
curious about what we're talking.
The amount of people in this group that we're talking about has no effect. The amount of people that believe something has no effect on whether that belief is true, whether we're talking about a small group or a big group. In my opinion.
Because everyone could be wrong.
Yeah, everyone could be wrong. Everyone could be wrong, and whether they agree with it or believe it has no effect on whether they are or not wrong. What do you think?
Well, I think there is, I think for me it comes to like focus, intention, what some people would call the power of prayer, faith, that kind of thing. And that seems to be a lot of what we're exploring with these kind of questions, is whether or not just because someone believes something, just because everyone believes something, whether it's true or not. It seems to influence reality to maybe push it over toward being true, or maybe it's just it pushes everyone's perspective of it over to being true, just because there's so much momentum behind that focus and that intention.
Do you think that the amount of people that believe something has an effect on whether that's likely the case?
Whether it's influenced, yeah. Whether it's true or not. Whether
That's
it's
what I
absolute
mean. Like,
or not, yeah.
what we're talking about whether something is true, not whether it can be influenced.
Yeah. If everyone agreed that the world is a sphere, but it turns out in reality it's a cube, people believing it, everyone agreeing that it's a sphere, doesn't change the fact that even though we're unable to perceive it, it's actually a cube.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty close on this one.
I think you're right. I think this is going to be one of those where, I mean, it sounds like you might be 99.9999996, and I'm like, it's a firm disagree.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a little bit more room for interpretation, but I think that's just based on definitions that we use. You and I use different definitions.
I think it's important to understand our definitions.
Yeah.
So that we're talking about the same thing. If we don't agree on the definitions, we can't have the same conversation.
Yeah. If we're not talking about the same purple, then
right,
we're having two different conversations.
Right.
Yeah, which is what's so beautiful about the street epistemology stuff. It takes the time to ask, well, what is your definition of that? And it seems inevitably you realize that we're closer in thinking than we thought we did based on the language we were using or the experience we were having.
I think street epistemology forces you to be aware of assumptions you might be making.
Yeah.
It forces you to check, are we defining this the same way?
Mm-hmm.
And typically we'll say, well, what is your definition? Let's use your definition because it's your claim that we're exploring together. Sometimes we'll say things like, maybe I can define it and you can tell me if you agree with my definition or not. That we can go from there. So yeah, I think definitions are super, super crucial.
Yeah, I agree.